And we're here.
Can chat hear all of us talking?
Can you hear everybody, not just Colin?
Mitch, you gotta talk to make sure we can hear you.
Sorry, I was muted.
Oh, Alex hears a chuck in a forest that no one can hear.
Is that Norton hears a who?
They speak for the trees because the trees have no mouths. That's a different one.
Yes.
All right. I think we should probably do a podcast.
All right.
Seem reasonable?
What should it be about?
Hmm.
Competitive Warhammer 40k?
Well, that's the one I'm most prepared to talk about. So I guess yes.
All
but
right.
but only because it's the thing we're most prepared to do. Oh, Airborne is Kim. Air Force is Alex. My mistake. Fair enough. All right. So let's get rolling here. Welcome to Best in Faction.
A podcast about competitive Warhammer 40k.
I'm Colin.
I'm Mitch.
And I'm Chuck.
And we're back. On a, what is it? Thursday night. This feels
Thursday
weird.
night.
Unnatural.
Yes.
Like it's not what was intended. We are recording tonight so that we don't miss this week because Mitch is going to spend the weekend with his amazing girlfriend who he is celebrating 4 years with, which is very exciting.
Yup.
So,
Yeah, gotta have, the podcast is important, but priorities.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you've only been on the podcast for 3 years. So just
Yeah.
by math, she must be more important than the
Yeah,
podcast.
seniority.
She's
That
got
was definitely what
seniority.
did it. Yeah.
Seth is
You should let her know
requesting a podcast about carnivorous plants. I think the best I could do is sing stuff from Little Shop of Horrors. I think that's about nobody wants that.
Orcs, right? They're carnivorous plants.
Well, okay. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I can't argue with that. That does appear to be some sort of orc buggy that you're painting.
Hello.
Gotta get them rocket trucks.
Hello.
Hi, Mitch, can you not hear us?
Well, no. Skype crashed and now has rejoined me, but
It caught you
seems-
drinking. So it was-
Yeah. Oh, so yeah. So that's. I'm gonna leave the call. I'll be right back.
All right. Well, this is the sort of professionalism you've come to expect from Best in Faction.
I'm glad we're consistent. That's what
So,
we're all about.
while Mitch is rejoining, we will.
Okay. Is this better? You have a feed now?
We can hear you.
Oh,
Yes.
Yep.
no. Still no image.
Still just drinking that orange juice or whatever.
It's just probably really good. It's probably what the problem is.
Homemade cider. Thank you.
Okay. Maybe turn your camera off and on again, and then we'll restart the show at this point, I think.
Yeah, I that was. I'm trying to just see.
You moved a little bit. Oh, there you are. Okay, great.
Okay, great.
Here we go again.
Woohoo!
This time with more feeling.
Do I get to choose the feeling?
Yes. I'm going with mild rage and constipation. Those are the those are the feelings I've decided to bring. All right.
The feelings one experiences when leaving a Denny's.
I was going to say a Waffle House, but I think we're making the same joke. It's really just arguing semantics at that point.
For sure.
All right. Welcome to Best in Faction.
A podcast about playing Warhammer 40k.
Competitively.
competitively.
I'm Colin.
I'm Mitch.
And I'm Chuck.
And we are here on a Thursday night. It's a little bit out of order for us. It feels weird and unnatural. Gus is asleep. I guess he would have been asleep if it had been Sunday morning either, but he's asleep behind me. And we are recording because we're not available this weekend because our wonderful co-host Mitch has got to celebrate 4 years with his amazing girlfriend. So we've been teasing him that is 1 year longer than he's been doing the podcast, so she does get seniority.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, exactly.
For
Right.
now.
That was that we had when I said, "Hey, I'm going to move the podcast to Lisa." I definitely said it's because you're senior. to the
Yes.
podcast. Otherwise, this would not be happening.
Well, you don't want to just say it's because you're senior and then stop at that point.
Yeah, that would have been
That's not what women are looking for from you. Just I mean, just to fill you in on my knowledge on the topic.
Yeah.
So, and you also never ask when the baby's due unless they tell you that there's a baby. There's all these rules. Okay, moving on. So, what we're going to do this week is we're going to talk about Charity Hammer. We have the actual official pairings to go through, which will be exciting. We're going to talk about our GT we ran last weekend that Chuck and Mitch both played in. And I think that we'll talk through the games a little bit, but rather than going into a lot of detail in the games, probably what we're going to talk about is Admech and Sisters, because that's what they were playing, and that's where a lot of their thoughts are going to be. I say that when Chuck's brain is not spending literally any time on Sisters. What is Chuck's brain thinking about right now?
Rocket truck. I have been furiously building and painting green all week.
That's weird, Chuck. Why would that be the case?
Well, I love my orcs, and it's time. It's time for the age of man to end.
Well, okay. So Chuck is no longer thinking about Sisters at all, so his comments about the tournament will be interesting. And
I haven't even read the new supplement stuff yet.
Okay. Chuck might have a favorite army, and it might be getting a codex soon. That's what's possible. And then we're going to do our third segment of Better Human, Better 40K, where we'll be talking about vulnerability. So that's our agenda for the show. And I think we should talk about the GT first, because that will lead into the Charity Hammer discussion well. In order to figure out who the final 23 to 32 people... that's a weird way of saying that. The final 23 to 32 people is not a good way of articulating this. To figure out who the final 10 people are in the 32-person seeded single elimination GT at Charity Hammer, we needed some locals to help us out. And so we did a GT here at my property last weekend, and it was incredibly fun. I want to thank everybody who came out. I had minimal TO calls. There was only one question I didn't know the answer to, which was very exciting for me. I was very happy about that. It did involve a rhino having people get inside of it and then driving forward next to a monolith, and then the monolith exploding and doing the final wounds to that rhino and blowing up the rhino and shooting out the people inside the rhino who then wanted to charge. I knew that you couldn't do that in 8th because people were abusing it. I didn't know where it was in the words in 9th, but it turns out they did cover that in the rulebook, that you cannot do that. But I'm still very amused by that. Anyways, so we did this GT, and it was super fun. Mitch played in it, Chuck played in it, and I TO'd. We did stream 2 of the tables for the whole tournament. You can find those on Canhammer TV and BiffPod's Twitch and YouTube's. They're absolutely available for you there. And it was just a great, good time. So why don't we talk a bit about your guys' experiences there and what you think of your army at the time and going forward. And then after that, we'll talk through who got the top 10 and how that's going to go into Charity Hammer. So let's have Mitch go first, because he's more interested in the army he's going to talk about.
I mean, yes and no. So I was playing Admech. This is the 3rd tournament I have played Admech at, and this time I really committed to that all infantry horde build that I had been slowly working towards from the last 2 events, because it's just my play style. It suits me perfectly. So I ended up bringing a Styges patrol and a Mars battalion. I brought 2 blocks of 20 Rangers, 2 blocks of 20 Vanguard, 20 Rust Stalkers, 2 squads of 10, a 10-man Mars Infiltrator squad, and 2 9-mans. And then just characters and just just kind of general the Manipulus and all the things I need to buff things, and then 1 little 5-man Action Monkey squad. I brought this because I felt like the mirror in AdMech is who goes first, and all you can do is try and tilt that skew so it's less who goes first. And I knew there were going to be a lot of AdMech players at this event. So the way I tried to do that was taking no vehicles basically meant that any anti-vehicle shooting you brought was more or less wasted. Those were wasted points. So you're going to kill me less effectively if you go first, hopefully. It worked really well. I played Dark Eldar in my first matchup on stream, so you guys can go watch that game. I'm not going to go into a ton of depth on it. I was playing Jeremiah as Dark Eldar. I've never played Dark Eldar before, so this was more of a learning experience for me. We had a great game. There was one moment where he was he thought he was there was a he was he the it was a super technical game because we both have fallback mechanics and all these different things, and I'm running a close combat AdMech army, so he can't just charge into me like Dark Eldar may want to do. So with that, he was charging into specific units because he thought that the fallback and shoot wasn't available. He misunderstood which marshal was which, but we were able to easily resolve it and move on and have a great game. And it was really cool to see Eldar or Dark Eldar played at a very, very like Jeremiah knows the stuff. He played it really well. He was very communicative. He knew all of his abilities very clearly, and he communicated very clearly. So that was awesome. I think he was a little nervous, maybe being on stream or whatever for the first time. But other than that, like that wore off as we played more and more, and we just got comfortable. So he went first, and because he went first, he was like, okay, I have a shot at this game, and he was able to pull it out by just coming at me and me not necessarily understanding all of the dynamics of the Dark Eldar matchup. I found I put a couple units forward because I knew that I didn't want to put all of them forward because if he goes first, he'll just charge and kill everything. But I figured a couple units is safe. It's going to be hard for him to charge a bunch of stuff into that, into one or two units and not kill enough of them to trigger the ability for me to the word is leaving me, but
I'm not sure what word you're going for. Can I get a hint?
I'm sorry. Morale out.
Oh, okay.
I figured I could morale out because he has to charge in enough stuff. There we go. My brain just would not give me that word. Sorry. So he goes first. He has a really good first turn. He charges up some Hellions turn 2. And so what I did was before I go into turn 2, my army was designed with the Styges being able to redeploy 2 units in my deployment zone and to infiltrate 2 other ones, that I can basically change what the deployment zone we were playing on would be. So I would commit to one area first, see where you would go, and if you went far away from me, I can keep committing to this area, then infiltrate a few units of infiltrators, and then scout a few units with Styges, and create an entirely different deployment scenario. And that was the entire idea behind this list. Is I looked at the terrain. I'm like, I don't want to play Dark Eldar on Dawn of War. I want to play them on Hammer and Anvil. So that's what I did, and that worked well. I needed to change a couple of my target priorities, and I needed to commit differently. I was able to heroically intervene with a Manipulus into his Hellions. He had a 10-man squad of Hellions. Make them fight last and wipe them out with a squad of infiltrators completely. So that was cool. But in the end, he was able to pull it out. Dark Eldar are amazing, and they're a really cool army to play against. And they're I can see how they're overtuned because obviously I'm playing an incredibly overpowered codex. So if that's how it feels for Dark Eldar, that's not a good sign. Like that. He only could win if he could go first, and a few things went his way. That's not a great sign. So, do we want to go back and forth on games?
No, I mean, like we talked about, we don't need to go into detail on the games, but people want to hear your takeaways, right?
Yeah. So, Matt Bombard, I believe, was my next opponent. And he was playing the New Sisters. He was I'm not going to go into super detail. He had 5 rhinos, 3 of them scouted with the units that make them scout. I don't remember retributors, maybe
Dominions.
Dominions.
Sorry,
thank you.
Mute on.
And then he had a lot of flamers, which were strength 6, AP 1, which were shockingly effective. I know, who knew? But I went first in that game, and long story short, I think the score was 100-17.
Yeah, there's an issue with AdMech where a lot of armies, if you go first, this can't do anything, right? That's the idea.
Yeah, so with infiltrators specifically and Styges as well. we were playing on very well-trained boards. Great job, Colin, TOing that. Like the boards were great. The terrain was awesome everywhere I play. You know, for the most part. Like, there was one game with Chuck, which we'll get to. But
On a table I
outside
did not set up.
on a table you did not set up, but other than that, the terrain was we played on very heavy terrain is how I would describe most of it. Like what most people would call heavy was our medium, I think. So the problem with AdMech is there's several. So you have infiltrators. Infiltrators are their own entire problem. If you take a lot, like I was taking 28 infiltrators. If I go first, I win. I just win. Like with that many infiltrators, I don't even have to use all of them. I usually take my 10 man and I would set it in the back of my field to confuse my opponent, and then outflank them with a stratagem later. And so with just 2 9-mans and maybe a Ruststalker squad, I usually put the Vanguard actually forward more and the Rangers forward more, because having that kind of shooting pressure is harder for people to deal with because I already have the combat from the infiltrators. But like if you go first, you have 100% win rate.
I don't think I think that you're missing a piece of info. So what you're saying is the infiltrators are so good and they can null deploy that if you go first, they move into your opponent's deployment zone, they shoot and then they charge, and that with all the AdMech shooting behind them, they're also durable enough that they take time for people to deal with while you're still shooting them. Is that basically what you're saying?
More or less. They can't redeploy because they're Mars. No, sorry.
Is you also have all your shooting. So Colin, if you remember, we used to play the Gene Stealers with the planes from Gene Stealer Cult.
Yeah.
So that you could set up these charges where you're going, I'm going to charge all the way across the board and I'm going to jump into you, but I'm also going to blow away any screening you happen to have.
Right.
He has that.
Okay.
Right. But what's really important about that is his screening. I used the trick that I learned playing you with that as I put my rhinos forward. Mitch is like, cool. AdMech troops will just shoot through 2 rhinos and a bunch of squads and still charge. Right. Like he can omni kill anything with it, and then send the chargers in. So there's an immense amount of pressure that goes very deep into deployment zone.
And on the first turn, which is why Mitch is emphasizing the going first.
Yeah, well, very much.
If I go first with the kind of builds I've been playing, I can usually remove about 1,000 points of my opponent's army, which should never be possible.
Yep.
Got 1,400 points of mine or so.
Yep. Yeah. So that takes us to my next match, which I played Chuck. So I had sisters back to back. These are both 9th ed, sisters. And this table had a bit sparser terrain for sure. I don't know that makes that much of a difference when I go first. It didn't help you for sure. But basically I was able to I infiltrated my Styges, Rangers, and my Vanguard, and I just set them to the side in a ruin, so that if I go first, I can just step them right out because we're playing table corners, and I can just see into Chuck's entire deployment zone. And I do the same thing on the other side with infiltrators, and I fill the middle with infiltrators and Ruststalkers that I know if I go first, I can pop a +3-inch move, and I can just go into his army. Like I can cross I'm going 11 inches, and then I'm charging, and he has to have stuff out front to keep me from just taking the board from him and pinning him in. So he has nowhere to go.
I think I did a very good job of pushing you out. There was a lot of your army you didn't get to use on the first turn. You did sacrificing 2 dominions. Like I pushed you back as hard as I could, and still took that level of casualty because I had no cover on my left.
By the end of my turn 2, you had 11 models left, and 10 of those were off the board. If they'd been on the board, they would have been dead too.
Yeah, though they would have been they would have been a priority target because those hand flamers on the Seraphim are great into you.
Yep. So that was game 3. It took very little time. And it was a...
I did kill a unit.
Yes.
That's very important to me.
So day 2, my next game is into a great friend of the podcast, Tyler Bortel. And one of the best Tyranid players on the planet, I would say. He only plays Tyranids. And he is very, very good at it. Unfortunately, I went first. And now I want to give Tyler. I had not played against Gene Stealer Cult in ages, and he just assumed I knew the Gene Stealer Cult rules. And I did not realize that his blips basically kept me from being able to move within 9
Oh,
inches
yeah.
of his deployment zone, which did actually slow me down for a turn.
That's like one of
Huzzah!
the
Way
best
to go,
rules in
Tyranids.
the game against you.
Yeah, yeah, and he had a great plan for if he went first, because all of his um, cultists in the blips had hand flamers, so he would just run forward and flame all my stuff that was right there. Um, and he was just going to try and do max damage as much as possible to try and take the mid board and just hold it. He played his heart out, but it in the end, like it just all the bullets didn't matter. And then I got to play Tanner, who is one of the better players for AdMech right now. In our area, I would say he's better than me. He has more experience. He's playing a lot more reps. He did really well at the Boise Cup, and he brought the more traditional. He has 2 gunships that are Mars, and then 2 bombers that are Lucius, and the full Lucius detachment with like Ranger squads and whatnot, and all the buffs. And then he had a 5-man flamer guy, and just all the stuff. He went first. We were on a really densely terrain table, so I was able to hide a lot and mitigate a lot of what he did. In fact, I would say if I did a couple things differently, I chose to pull a squad of infiltrators off the table just to keep him safe and to make them a threat. He had to worry about screening in his backfield. I should have kept them on. He popped the plus 3-inch move -1 save canonical or Doctrina, so I was able to pick up his 2 gunships with pretty easily. If I had refocused my fire, I could have probably gotten a bomber and both gunships and used the 100 shots I would have had from my infiltrators to take down to maim one of the gunships, and then use the remain. There's one of the things that's really insanely, like, just so stupidly good with that Ranger squad combo. So you take the 20-man Ranger squad for Mars, you Wrath of Mars them, you make them rapid fire, so they shoot 80 shots. And you pick 3 different targets, 2 different targets, 4 different targets, whatever it is. Chances, as long as you put the weakest targets first, chances are they will kill them with the direct shooting and not the mortal wounds. So eventually, the mortal wounds will get saved. But if you have a sub-average setup, the mortal wounds will help you compensate and make sure you absolutely kill the thing you want to kill.
Right. So if you're on your first roll, if you kill the thing with your normal shooting, your mortals don't happen because mortals happen last.
Yeah.
Then you shoot the next thing, and you're too short, and you think, damn it, I should have put 1 more gun or 2 more guns in. And then you're like, oh, wait, no, I'll do 2 mortals. Okay, that's done. And you still have the 4 mortals left for the third thing. That's what you mean, right? Okay.
Yes, precisely. So anyway, I was able to make a game of it. If I made a couple different decisions, I think I could have actually tied, or I could have. It would have been anyone's game at that point. I think I could have turned it around. But that's taking a list specifically designed to counter AdMech. And even then, I still struggled just because the alpha strike is so insane. But yeah, so he won that one, and I ended up 3-2 with AdMech, which people go like, you lost with AdMech, whatever. Here's an interesting thing. Tanner reminded me of a rule on my marshals that I hadn't been using for the entire tournament. I just forgot about it, and it was really important. It would have won me the Dark Eldar game. It allowed me to ignore the negative effects of the Doctrina. I just forgot. There are so many rules and abilities and bookkeeping that come with this army that it is really easy to end up just completely forgetting stuff. It takes a lot of tokens and just tracking.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mitch, I'm worried about people's ability to play that book accurately.
I am too.
I
struggled. I know I struggled. I know I got one rule wrong for sure. I think it's wrong, but it wasn't a major deal. It didn't really affect anything. But it's so easy to misinterpret what they're trying to say, and there are so many layers to stuff.
Yeah.
Like the free CP that you get from the upgrades for the Manipulus and Dominus and stuff.
Yeah.
Those only apply to certain types of stratagems. Each one is different. I did not know that. I hadn't been using it that much, and it turns out the ones that I had and I used them for, because I always use them first, it worked out. So I wasn't really, like, it wasn't a big deal, because I always use them for the same 3 stratagems at the beginning of the game, so I don't forget them. And so if a Manipulus dies, I haven't lost that free CP I paid for. But it is hard. It is hard to make sure you are getting everything right, because there is just so many layering abilities, and there are so many caveats. Like, it is tough.
I think it's also going to be one of the easiest armies in the game to cheat with if someone wanted to, right? Like
100%.
I think if I was playing you and you're like,
what happens, and I believe you.
Yeah, if we were playing and you were like, no, I actually get +2 to wound here because of these 3 Bebop names, and it overrules the maximum +1 to wound roll, I'd be like, oh, okay, that sucks, but all right. Like, like people could literally make things up, and the book's so complicated that you'd be like, really? Didn't know that was in the book, but oh, all right, okay. So, all right. Well, what are your thoughts about AdMech going forward, and especially with the campaign rules coming out here?
So the campaign rules, I think that they are obviously incredibly powerful, and the army didn't need a buff, and they're buffing the things that are already good. So that's all bad. The good news is that if you go with that Army of Renown, you can only have 1 Manipulus, and I would say the Manipulus is one of the most important parts of that book, because the +6-inch range, +1 AP is huge. And don't forget, they have a strength 7 AP 3 flat 3 damage gun that hits on 2s. Like, I take 3 of them, and I regularly can, like, do good damage to vehicles, because it's 36-inch range. They're and 2 of them are Mars, so they get to reroll to hit. So losing the Manipulus is the only real downside.
Yep. Well, it's more points.
Yeah, but you get more points, and the other thing, obviously, is keeping you to 1 Forge World. The most successful lists we've been seeing, for the most part, have 2 Forge Worlds, because you're limiting the complexity of what you can really bring if you go to 1, for sure. Because, like, obviously, if you take Lucius and, say, Styges, you have Redeploy, you have Infiltrate, you have Transhuman, you have Teleport. Like, you can have all of these abilities. Which can be a really cool, like, super deep bag of tricks, like, if it wasn't so overpowered. But you're giving up a lot of that with the Army of Renown. I still think it's better, personally. I think that it's better. And
well, it's different. I think it's fair, right? Yeah. I don't think that you would take the builds that other people are playing, not what you're playing, but like what Tanner's playing and what Hank is playing, like what our locals are playing. I don't think you would take those builds and just add the Army to the Renown to it, right? Really what it is it's a separate AdMech build that might be better, but is at the worst case probably equally powerful. Is that a fair take?
I think it's definitely better, personally. I don't think you can give someone access to Advance in Charge and a 5-up Feel No Pain on a 20-man unit and not say it's just better.
Okay.
To me, different and better, sure. The only thing that you can really argue is that the bombers are so effective into hordes that if you're trying to compare AdMech, like, I just don't. But all we're talking about here is which Ferrari's faster. They're both insane, right? Like, this is not a and we're not going to go salty, guys. This isn't going to be the Space Marine episode. But
now wait. Are you calling them a Ferrari because they're because of how expensive the army is to build? Is that the
and the red and they're finicky and there's a lot of
and they have names that look weirdly
components.
Italian.
Yeah,
they have vocabulary that looks Italian.
They use strangely archaic forms of technology for no reason at times. Like, it's perfect.
Okay, I like everything about that. Okay, can we stop talking about AdMech now, please?
We're almost done.
Okay, go ahead.
So what I will say to people is...
Oh, to the people?
Yeah, to everyone who's frustrated with AdMech. I am frustrated with AdMech. I don't intend to play them other than maybe Charity Hammer. It is not fun to play. It is not fun to play against. So if you are... But here's the thing. If you have a friend who's played AdMech for a long time, like, they have, don't give them shit. They want to be excited about their new toys too, and you can say, hey, listen, I don't want to play against, like, the maxed out build right now. Can we do something fun or different? You can find a way to interact with that without making them feel bad about their toys. Because this is when the meta is dealing with stuff like this, it is not fun for anyone involved, other than that guy who is twirling his mustache about how all of a sudden he's winning. Like, no one cares.
Oh.
Like, it's Plastic Soldier Man. Like, anyone who has any real human perspective, like, wants to see their friends have fun playing the game too, and is upset by this.
I think
Like,
that's practice game for sure. But like at a tournament, I would go one step farther and say, please stop giving people shit for what army they've chosen to bring. It's a tournament.
Yeah. Yep.
Like it's not their responsibility to hamstring themselves. They should play the best things that they can play. And so, yeah, you may not want to play against AdMech, but it's not that person's fault that AdMech's so good. It's they chose to bring it because they wanted to win. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. So,
but anyway, so that's they need to be fixed. I would certainly not be surprised with some points hikes. I would like to see some CP cost changes to some of the stratagems. The thing about AdMech is they are 100% CP driven, but they can blow all that CP in 1 or 2 turns, and they will have killed so much of your stuff. They don't have to use the CP anymore.
Yep.
If you make it so that they can't do 2 turns of that, the 1 turn makes it less bad, but they still have such phenomenal offensive output that's not enough. We have to reduce the alpha. That's the problem.
Yep.
The durability. I stopped playing Lucius because the transhuman unit died every time. Like, if you want to commit to kill it, you can commit to kill it. It's not. The durability is frustrating at times, but lots of armies have weird durability quirks. The offensive output is the problem.
Okay.
Anyway.
I would agree with all of that.
Yeah.
Hi, Chuck.
I didn't really get to learn much about the durability in our game.
No, you didn't.
They're so durable because they're a wall of bullets. You can't.
Yeah. So let's see here. Sisters Battle. Let's kind of talk about what I plot. A Bloody Rose Battalion. I grabbed 2 units of 5 Zephyrum and 2 units of Repentia. I brought Morvenval and I brought Celestine. And then I brought a ton of Fast Attack from Argent Shroud. Brought 3 squads of Dominions, 2 squads of Seraphims, and then also brought 2 squads of Retributors and put them in Rhinos with the Dominions. It was pretty good list. I actually think it's pretty close to what I would say is what I would be aiming for if I was going to continue to play Sisters. Obviously, orcs are coming, and I'm going to be completely distracted from them for quite some time, but I think the list is in a decent place. It is super hard to play. Your pieces are actually far more consistent shooting-wise than they used to be, and the close combat is like, it's weird to say, it's a little better on the Repentia because I was running them with the Repentia Sister Superior and getting the really long bomb charges and stuff, but I never get one against any indirect fire, so it was easier to handle on my side. So first round, I got matched up against Rob, one of our locals, and he was playing Black Templars. He hasn't played much Ninth, and that showed in all the little rusty corners and stuff as we played, but we got through it. He brought pretty typical Black Templars. He had a big squad of Terminators on one flank, and he put a big squad of Vanguard Vets on the other side, and I just did everything I could to stretch his army out and make sure I scored secondaries, and it worked. I think the only thing that kept him in the game past turn 3 was I dropped my Repentia into his Vanguard Vets and souped up with everything. They only killed 5 of them. And he was really quick to heal them back up and pop more guys in and charge them into my army. In the end, I was able to pull it out by only 5 points, which was a pretty close game for game 1. You always want to do a little better with that. After that, I went into my game 2. I got to play against Dark Eldar with Steve in our local meta. He's a very, very good player. And I'm not even going to go too much into this game. Turn 2, he put some bait out, and I was like, bait? Let me deploy my entire army to kill it. And then Dark Eldar come quick and clean everything you have off the table. I know better than that. I've been playing against that style of army forever. I did it, and then I looked at it.
It's literally what I play.
Yeah, I was like, the crap you doing? You need 8 multi-multis to kill an unbuffed Court of the Archon? Like, I don't think so. Like, what are you doing, buddy? I was like, well, whatever. I don't know. Toss that game in the trash. It's still likely he would have won, but he won at 100-40. I probably could have done a little better than that.
Probably.
Game 3, I got an AdMech education, and we already kind of discussed that.
On to game 4.
I just want to point. I got 19 points.
Yep.
So it sounds like I did 3 better than Bombard did.
Two
so
better, yes.
I'm just putting that out there in the world so that people know. For my 4th game, I played Josh Bagwell. Him and I haven't played forever. And he brought a Necron list. Honestly, the Necron list was what he had available, and
he was playing like his first ninth edition games.
Like I stepped out of my Rhinos, blew up his monolith, and blew up one of his T-Arcs, and then dropped mortal wounds into squads. Like I killed 800 points of his army to start, and then continued to dump mortal wounds out of Dominions into his squads, and he was gone very, very quickly. He did everything he could to make it hard for me, but in the end, it was pretty quick. Also should mention, on that first turn when I killed both vehicles, they both exploded, so that definitely helped push it a little bit further. But in game 5, Timpy heard that I'd beaten Necrons, and he decided to take revenge. He was playing the arcing lot style with all of the vehicles just everywhere. The way my sister's built, they have an OBSEC problem. I made the choice to not include the Dogmata, who can give a unit OBSEC, and I regret that. I think I would have had a lot better chance in most of my games that I've been able to just pick one unit and say that unit's going to be OBSEC for this round. And it showed the most in my game with Tempe. He could, swing a boat around a corner and poke its head onto an objective and be like, well, you don't score that.
Yeah.
So he kept my primary down to 35. I could have easily gotten 5 to 10 more points out of that if I had more OBSEC in my
Well, and 10 more points, he would have won the game, right?
Yeah, that would have been just enough to make me win. But then in addition to that, I also took the data analysis, whatever, where you you do an action and then how many objectives you hold. Honestly, I've been taking Engage, Pray to Miracles, and Rod the entire tournament, and at this point it doesn't matter. I'm just going to do something different. I did horribly on it. I got like 4 points out of it. If I just done Rod, I would have got another 8 there. Right? There was a bunch of little things that game could have gone better.
Rod is new scramblers for those that don't know.
Yeah. Retrieve Octarius data.
Mm-hmm.
The game went by very quickly. Michael and I always have a good time playing each other, so it was a really great way to end out a tournament. It did leave me at 2 and 3. I did talk to Bombard afterwards. He was the other sister player there, and he was 2 and 3 as well.
I thought he went 1 and 4.
Oh, did he?
Oh, look, you keep talking.
I thought he said 2 and 3, but we both kind of shared a lot of the same feelings that there's probably still a lot of power in the book. It's certainly a downgrade, and it's certainly a different army. So it's going to take us a little while to re-educate, and get with what it is good at instead of like leaning on what it used to be.
He did go 2 and 3.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Well, let's talk about my tournament.
Yeah.
Because that's kind of fun. This is my first time TOing a GT, and I did it while running 2 stream tables, which I didn't really run at all. Thanks to Pickles and Tyler and Peter for keeping the streams running the whole weekend. We were testing a bunch of stuff. If you watched, we love your feedback. We were testing different things. That wasn't what the way Charity Hammer will be. We were just testing tack and trying to get stuff going there. It was fun for me to see all my friends playing and wander between the tables. It was a good time.
It's a totally different perspective, right?
Yeah, it's very different. And I wish that I knew now what I wish I knew at the start what I know now, which is in round 5, I spent about 5 minutes at a number of different games, like watching the game, just hanging out and just watching it. And I loved that. And I was so busy in my head trying to make everything work in the earlier rounds that I never really got to enjoy watching anybody play 40K. So if I had to do it over again, I would try to be a little bit more present, which is a thing that I'm very bad at, is being present in the moment. I'm constantly thinking about the next thing that needs to happen, which is why my job on the podcast is make sure we talk about everything in the allotted time. Because while everybody's talking, my brain's going, we have this many minutes left, and there's this going on, and there's this list of agenda items. Yeah. So, anyways, it got really interesting in round 3. Round 3 is where on one of the stream tables we put AdMech into Deathwatch. A gentleman named Fred Fortman had flown out here from Chicago to see us. He had not been out to the Pacific Northwest before. He's a geology teacher, and he was very excited to see all of our glorious mountains out here and to come see us. In fact, he wore the collector's edition Best in Faction shirt that we printed like almost none of a million years ago and then stopped doing. So it was wonderful to see him. He was playing Deathwatch. He came out and they played this game, AdMech versus Deathwatch, and he was winning almost from the start, to the degree where Tanner, the AdMech player, actually pivoted to helping him understand AdMech while he was beating him. And that was on the Canhammer stream. It was game 3. And if you want to know more about either of those armies, Deathwatch or AdMech, I'd watch that. It was really interesting how it pivoted from a tournament game into kind of a let's learn everything we can here. I think that table was too heavy on terrain, and that is why we had back-to-back AdMech losses on that table. It's hard.
Is that the crystal table?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Yeah. I think it needs to have a Dremel taken to it. And it's got ruin L's that need to be windows, and that would make a big difference. Mm-hmm. Because what ended up happening is the AdMech got into situations where they just couldn't get angles on the Deathwatch until the Deathwatch were on top of them. This was hard because I am of the opinion that terrain makes 40k fun. And if you have not enough terrain, the game is terrible. I don't feel like, oh, well, then gunlines win. No, I just don't like it. I don't think the game is fun if there's not terrain to hide things. In my ideal world, you can hide a large portion of your army on the first turn of the game. And I don't think that's us overreacting. That's legitimately what I think is reasonable in a game where you have armies that can kill your whole force, right? Like, it's not just AdMech. They can come across the table and wreck you. Sisters can do it, and Tyranids can do it. Like, Tyranids have guns for days in the right build. Like, Craft-Old Eldar can do it. Tau can do it. Like, Guard has a lot of shooting. Like, there's a lot of armies that just can pick apart a huge proportion of the game. So, we were trying to play with the best terrain we could. Lots of obscuring, lots of hiding. There's pictures of it that I can share if anybody's curious what it looked like. The stream tables were great. I do think the crystal table was too heavy. But it was interesting to see AdMech be in a situation where they're like, oh, this table isn't the best for us. Because I bet Mitch has thought that 0 times in the games he's played.
Yeah. Well, with the all infantry version and not relying on the shooting so much as the like always having that combat option, and Ruststalkers being able to ignore all terrain modifiers makes it like a very inevitable feeling like wave of bodies.
Right. So, the other thing that happened that was pretty crazy on that table was the next round. I think it was on that table. Let me just remind myself here. Yeah, so the next morning, we had Lucas playing his, I guess, the finale performance forever of 120 boys and 14 smash-a-guns. I think that list is probably retired now. We'll see when
probably
the book comes out.
Boys now, right? Oh.
Yeah, right. And that game was Orcs versus AdMech on that same table. And much to everyone's amazement, Lucas, the war boss, was able to defeat Hank's AdMech on that table. He was able to get it 67 to 61. Mark had not played. Excuse me, Hank. It says Mark in the app. His name is Hank. Hank had not played against Orcs in a long time, and he did. And a full caveat is he did forget about Green Tide. That's an easy thing to forget about. I play Orcs all the time, and I've been known to forget about Green Tide. Like,
yeah, we are in a very Orc heavy meta.
Yeah, you can forget about Green Tide. That's a completely acceptable mistake to make. I suspect that because it was a 6-point game, that if he remembers that, the Orcs don't have as good of a job. But even to play it this close is an incredible compliment to Lucas's skill.
Super impressive. He's super impressive.
Yeah, I think Lucas is playing that list that he's played for so long to a level that no one would be able to copy without an incredible amount of work. And I'm a little bit sad for Lucas that he's going to lose that specific skill set. I think it's going to be interesting to see how he adapts to the Orc book, because I think that Lucas is one of the very best players in the Pacific Northwest right now at 21 years old or whatever he is. I think that he is just head and shoulders above most of our players, and he's tall, so that's even funnier. Um, I'll be super curious to see how he adapts to New Orcs. I really will. I'm excited about that. We'll be having him. We'll make sure we have him on the show at some point to talk New Orcs as well. I think that'll be great, and he will be at Charity Hammer, so we'll get to see him play Orcs at Charity Hammer too.
Another fun one. I will end up playing Tanner again at Charity Hammer. Because he is who I matched up to from his placing beating me.
You sure will.
I put you there, Tanner.
And he beat you there.
I put you there, and I can take you back down.
Yeah, I put you into this event, and I can take you right back out.
So the final game for the tournament, the only two undefeated players were Fred and Lucas, and unfortunately, on a reasonable table rather than the heavy terrain of the crystal table, the Death Watch with their anti-Xenos tech and their incredible durability were just like, oh, the orcs are coming at us. That sure is scary. Oh, we killed all the orcs. Okay, well,
Lucas's armies also happens to be troop choices and heavy support choices.
Right.
So it's just like leaning right into them.
Yeah. As Lucas said as he walked up to the table, he's playing Codex Kill a Data Sheet, and my army is 2 data sheets. Yeah. Which I think is pretty funny. It was great to see Fred do that, though, to come all the way out here from Chicago and win the GT against, a lot of our best players. That was pretty flippin' cool. I really liked watching him play Deathwatch. It made me want to play Deathwatch. They looked really fun. We had 3 Black Templar players. That was super cool. We had 5 Admech players. I love that
anyone looking at who attended this tournament, like the factions, like outside of our meta, would be like, what is going on?
It was a little weird, but to the credit of the tournament, of the 28 people that played, like a solid 24 of them are lists that I think are optimized tournament, kill your opponent's face lists. Like we had
100%. I think that the whole Black Templars thing is pretty cutting edge right now for the Marine tech.
Yeah.
But like, true. So anyone
so is Deathwatch.
Yeah, so exactly. So anyone looking at this is like, why aren't the Ultramarines winning? I don't understand what's going. Like, it's different from that kind of national narrative we see for what's good in 40K right now.
Right. Okay, so let's go through the placings. Starting at number 13. I'm not going to explain why. It makes sense. So our 13th place was Ben Wadsworth playing Admech. He's unfortunately unable to come to Charity Hammer, so his spot will be taken by Paul Winters, who is right below him. Interesting. Paul Winters and Ben.
Amazing.
Paul and Ben tied their final game at Charity at this GT, and if they had not, the winner would have taken this spot. So what ended up happening instead, because they tied it, is Ben got the spot, and then one wasn't able to come, so Paul gets to come. One of my favorite 40K stories of the weekend, though, came from that game, and I'll share it briefly. Paul had a Contemptor Dreadnought that got shot and blew up, and it killed a Noise Marine with its explosion. And the Noise Marine then got to shoot his 3 shots into the Admech and killed 3 dudes. I love every bit of that. I love that the Dreadnought's like dying, it like falls over, it like grabs the Noise Marine and like hurls it at the Admech. It's playing, that Noise Marine's playing the guitar furiously as he flies through the air at them. Love everything about that. Noise Marine shooting out of sequences is great. Okay, so Paul. And then number 12 is Michael Tempe. Number 11 is Steve Trimble playing... Oh, Michael's playing Necrons. Steve Trimble playing Drukhari. Ryan Lynn playing Admech got 10th. Tyler Bortel playing Forces of the Hive Mind got 9th. Mr. Mitch got 8th with his Admech. Zach got 7th with Black Templar, excuse me. Hank got 6th with Admech. Jeremiah Bergdale with Drukhari in 5th. Lucas got 4th with Orcs. JT Steiger got 3rd with the Ultra Memes. I will give him a special shout out because JT got 1st place on Paint and 1st place on Sportsmanship and 3rd place for General. So that was our first overall by a wide margin.
Yeah.
The idea, by the way, I played Ultra Memes at a tournament, and the idea that anyone would have given me an award for sportsmanship at that tournament is hilarious to me. I was not rude to anyone, but I played like almost no turns because I just kept tabling everyone. But no, somehow JT encouraged his opponents to have fun while he tabled them with Ultra Memes. hilarious.
Opponents are describing his personality as it tastes like caramel.
Weird.
I
Maybe
thought so.
maybe their review on the Sportsmanship was not as painful as other tablings.
Less of a dick than those AdMech guys.
Yeah, at least it wasn't Admech. Everybody just wrote at least it wasn't Admech on his sportsmanship card. I don't know what that was all about. Then Tanner got second with Admech, and Fred got first with Deathwatch. So, congrats to all of them. Here's what happens. They're seeded into the 23 to 32 seeds for the GT. This is a debut of the full rankings and pairings for Charity Hammer. These are locked in. These are happening. Everybody's coming. These are the games you're going to get to see. And this is the first time we've talked about them publicly. They are seeded based on true ELO. Falcon went through all of the game data from the beginning of 2018 until now, and every opponent that every one of us had, he weighed basically how good that opponent was. So ELO is basically everybody starts at an arbitrary score. Like, let's say everybody starts at 1,200 arbitrary points. When you win a game, it goes up. When you lose a game, it goes down. But when you play someone who's higher than you, you go up more when you win. And someone lower than you, you'll go down more when you lose. So basically, it reflects how good your opponents were, and thus gives a better understanding of how good of a player you are, aside from other things that can make noise in that data, like where are you playing, what tournaments are you at, are you just playing the same, beating the same 4 people over and over again, like what's really happening. And from that, we have our 32. So let me give you the top 10 for Charity Hammer, and then we'll do the pairings. So the top 10 are: number 10, Zach Nelson. Zach is our kind of person other than Mitch and I that's won a lot of tournaments out here in the Pacific Northwest over the past few years. It's probably Colin, then Zach, then Mitch would be my guess for number of tournaments, but only because you took that break, Mitch. But it would definitely be the 3 of us. So excited to see him and the 10th seed. The 9th seed, I'm reading this off of the worst screen ever, is Mitch, right there with him. Mitch has an incredibly high win rate, lots of tournaments won, so that was easy. The king of going to 1 million tournaments, Mark Perry, is in 8th. 7th is Rich Kilton, maybe the best orc player in the world. Chuck, is that a fair thing to say?
I don't know. Lucas is going to tell us.
I like that. Number 6 is myself. I'm very proud to be number 6. And then number 5 is Alex McDougall. Number 4 is Jim Vessel. Those are people we talk about all the time. So Jim, basically I think he got 2nd or 3rd in the ITC after winning a gazillion tournaments in a row. So it's hard not to see him justified as a 4th seed. Brad Chester is 3rd. Nick Nanavati is 2nd, which leaves John Lennon in 1st place. John edged Nick out by simply going to more tournaments and, you know what? Having a higher win percentage. We discovered through this data that John's win percentage... Now, this data is only GTs and larger. My win percentage was 79 point something percent, almost 80% over all my GTs in this data. But this is back for 3 years, right? So mine was like 80%. Alex McDougall was a little bit ahead of me. John was 89%. So a full 9% ahead of me for win percentage. And I would say that I win a lot at tournaments, but not compared to John. So John gets the 1st seed. So here's how that all shakes out. Round number 1 pairings. First up, John Lennon versus Paul Winters. Paul plays only Slanesh. John will play whatever broken thing he's excited about at the time. Sorry, Paul. I think this is going to go bad for you. Game number 2. Bridget Hahn from the Tabletop Titans. And he's going to play something. He plays Custodes, I think I was told, against primarily. That could be wrong. I don't know Bridget particularly well. I also know that on the pairings it currently says Bridget, so I will fix that. And then he's going to play against Tim Penny. Tim is a Sisters player from Florida. Tom Pony is his alter ego. It's true.
No, that's his name on this podcast.
The Pony is what I normally call him. Tim is a host from Art of War and also Florida 40 Man. Florida 40 Man. That's great.
You nailed it.
Florida 40K. Whatever. Florida Man, 40K Florida Man? Whatever. Okay. I can't get the words in the right order. We're moving on. Next up is Mark Perry, who I presume will play Chaos, but I believe he's a Orc fan as well.
He is.
And he's going to play against JT Steiger, who just played Ultra Memes. But JT plays all of the Marines, so I don't know what he'll be bringing. Then it's the Mitch Tanner rematch, which Mitch is going to win this time, right? Your plan? Is your plan to go first?
I don't know what I'm gonna do yet.
Okay.
Could still be 30 Wolfen. Haven't decided.
I know you were considering bringing Space Wolves until we were like, well, your first matchup is AdMech.
And I'm like, yeah, but if I go first and I advance in charge, like maybe.
So you're saying there's a chance?
Well, I'm thinking +1 attacks and then going the half of them with their Wolfen claws, because at that point they have like 6 attacks, rerolling hits and wounds.
All right.
Nope.
I'm just not going to get excited about that, but I'm here for you, bitch. I'll be excited for you.
There should be no reason to be excited. It's fine. It's just me being me.
Okay. Next up is Jim Vessel versus Tyler Bortel. Now, this is a weird one because Jim's the 4th seed and Tyler's the 29th seed. But Tyler has played 10 times the 9th edition. No, probably 20 times the 9th edition 40K that Jim has played. Jim has been locked down in Canada for longer than we've been locked down here. And Jim also plays Chaos, which, as you know, is a penalty. That makes it easier for you to be beaten. So that'll be a really interesting one. But Jim has way more tournament experience than Tyler. He's won games, huge games. Jim's going to have he's not going to have any, nervousness or discomfort or anything. He's going to bring his best game. So that'll be really interesting.
Well, and it's really cool because they're both very technical players, right? They
both want to play the mission. They don't just want to kill you. They both want to play the mission.
But they also are going to know their own rules very well for the most part, right? Like these are not army hopping people, right?
Sure,
like we have 2 people who are faction committed. Mm-hmm. And anytime you see that at a high level is always cool because you're going to see interactions you're not going to see anywhere else.
Right. All right, so that's then next up is Michael Tempe's Necrons versus Anthony Vanilla's Drukhari. Now, Vanilla, which is what I'm going to start calling him, is a incredible Drukhari player. He's new to the competitive scene, relatively speaking.
Does that mean we get to go dung 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 dung? Sorry.
Yes, that's right.
Okay.
Please, every time he walks by him, I'd be fine with that. He is relatively new to the competitive scene over the past couple of years, but really what's happening for him is he really plays Drukhari very well, and Drukhari's been very strong, and so he's having a hell of a season. He's currently in the top 10 in the ITC. He's seeded in at 20th because, remember, this is a career seeding, not just how you're doing right now. That said, that's another one where Michael's one of the best Necron players there is. That's going to be a heck of a game. That's one that will almost certainly get a lot of attention. Next up, I feel less excited about this. A wonderful best friend of the podcast, one of my best friends in all of 40K, Alex McDougall, is going to play Hank. Alex is a more accomplished player than Hank. Not that Hank isn't a good player. Hank's a very good player. But Alex is maybe the best Tyranid player on the planet. Maybe. Could be. If it's not him, I don't know who it is.
If you aren't having a conversation that includes him, then you're not having a legitimate conversation, is how I'd put it.
Yeah, and I think that people would say the other people that won a lot of tournaments with Tyranids are Nanavati, John Lennon, and myself. Are the other 3 people that won a lot of events with Tyranids, but like none of us are as good at the game at Tyranids as Alex is. None of us are.
Well, you also had Alex in your ear.
Yeah,
right.
Like he's a part of all those wins to some degree.
Yeah, like there's not been
he's literally the hive mind. He's part of the hive mind that
like
those lists.
Alex and I wrote the Demacaron list. Alex and John and I wrote the Ridge Runner list. Like the double Stealer list. Alex had one of the first versions of that. Like Alex has been at the front of the Tyranid meta, whether you knew his name or not, for as long as 8th edition and 9th edition.
As long as he's been playing Nids.
Yeah, pretty much.
Also just one of the genuinely one of the nicest people in 40K.
He's a little sassy Canadian. He's a little sassy Canadian. A little bit.
Well, I like that.
I said 40K, not Canada.
Fair enough. Compared to other Canadians, he's really weird, I think.
Metric. Yeah.
Anyways, Alex Mad Dog McDougall playing against Hank. Hank's got AdMech. That's real bad for the Nids, I gotta be honest. Alex is like, well, I'll do my best, and that's all we can hope for.
I mean, Yeah, it really comes down to wounding anything on hit rolls of 4.
Yeah, it's going to be a thing. I would not be surprised if Alex plays something super skew. So we'll see how that goes. Next up is Thomas Bird, who usually plays Marines, and to Dave Robson. Dave Robson's a accomplished player from our meta in the 21st seed. He'll be playing Necrons. That's all he plays, so it's easy for me to figure out. Then we've got local GT winner Steve Tremble, who we just talked about earlier. Is going to be playing against Nick Nadavati. We don't know what Nick is playing. We do know that he has lost a bet, and Mark Perry is writing his list. We do know that.
Oh man.
We don't know what he's playing. It could be Orcs.
Excellent.
It could be Be'lakor. It could be Emperor's Children. We just don't know.
9 obliterators.
I don't think that Mark wants Nick to do badly, so that'll be interesting. But also, Nick hates obliterators, so that would be the way.
Yeah.
If he was trying to troll him, that's absolutely what he would do.
Yeah.
Okay.
All the randomness would drive Nick nuts.
Yes. Nick has hated obliterators for as long as we've known him.
Nick has hated randomness for as long as we've known
That's
him.
probably fair.
If there's anything I've taken away from conversations about the game with Nick is he values consistency above all.
Right.
He wants to know that the thing does the thing every time.
Yeah, he does.
Well, let me tell you about a unit with 5 different rolls to shoot its gun.
Yeah. All right. Game number 10
Successfully shooter. You could fail a lot sooner.
is Danny Often Moist McDevitt against Seth Oster. Now, this is a big deal because these are two of your hosts from the Frontline Gaming Network's new launch of content. Danny's with John on Grim After Dark, and Seth is with Kicker and Shelby on Signals from the Frontline. And they have been already talking trash to each other on their shows.
Well, and let's be clear before we go forward, like, they have also both been killing it on the network. Great new content, amazingly, like the production value and what they're doing over there is awesome. Loving it.
People on our Discord have started referring to Danny as the most reliable chuckle in 40K.
Yep.
I'm a little offended, but
I know.
I'll give it to him.
I know. Don't worry, you're on the soundboard. We're working on it.
Yeah.
All right.
So Seth will almost certainly be playing. No, Seth is playing Orcs.
Yeah, if you had any shadow of doubt in that, no.
But Danny is playing AdMech.
Oh, yeah.
And I know this because Danny is on Chuck and my team tournament team for Vegas, and he's playing AdMech there. So we know this.
I know what it's like to be that person on a team, the AdMech player.
Yeah.
It's real low pressure.
Interestingly, our entire team is playing in this, Chuck. So, we're really getting our team some good practice.
Mm-hmm.
So,
we're ready.
The rest of our team is Alex McDougall and Michael Timpey. It's us 5. So, anyway, so that's Danny versus Seth. They're talking trash about that already. Going to be great.
It's going to be amazing. That's if there's one I want to watch, that's up there. That's got to be up there.
But is it better than the old versus the new, which is the next matchup of Rich versus Lucas?
That's the one I'm watching.
So the most accomplished Orc player, if we're not going to say he's the best, we can certainly say he's the most accomplished Orc player over the last several years.
Mm-hmm.
He's won, even when the rest of everybody else was saying Orcs were bad, Rich would once in a while be like, oh, hey, I won a major. That was cool. Like, ain't no thing. And Lucas, as we talked about earlier, is just an incredible player. And they're both going to be playing Orcs, so that'll be an Orc mirror. We were supposed to have them play in the What's WOG Got to Do With It tournament at Charity Hammer, which we'll have to adjust because they're now playing each other in the actual tournament. So
the first time I played Rich was in the last tournament of 7th edition I played, and I was playing the Space Wolves Black Mains formation, like 14 drop pods, and I get paired into Orcs in like round 3, and I'm like, cool, this is good, this is great for me, like Orcs are no problem. And then I have a really intense but amazingly fun game with one of, like, I talk about like the nicest people in 40K. Rich Kilton is he's bubbly, he's friendly, he's never down. You never have a bad interaction with him.
He refers to himself as unfrozen caveman mailman a lot, which murders me dead. Yeah. That is so funny.
Just a delight to play against.
I was asking him to do something on the computer to set up for Charity Hammer, and he's like, "You're gonna have to help me out here. I'm just an unfrozen caveman mailman. I'm trying to make my way in the world." I'm like, "Okay, Rich. All right."
So he's just a delight, and I can't wait to see him on stream. It's gonna be great.
Right. So,
And yeah, it's the talent on display with these last few matchups is just amazing.
yeah, well, I mean, there's of the 32 people here, I would not be surprised if 25 of them have won a GT. I
Oh,
wouldn't be,
if not more. Yeah.
yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if 10 people in this have won a major. Like,
Oh,
um,
I think it's more than 10.
I don't know. Majors are a lot rarer than you might think, but certainly everybody. I guess everybody in the top 10 has probably won a major
Definitely.
because I know Alex has, and I know Jim has, and you have, and I have. Kilton has.
Has
Yes,
Zach?
everybody in the top 10 has for sure.
Yeah.
Because Zach has as well, and
Yeah,
then
that he's
yeah.
10, so there you
that
go.
makes sense. Yeah. Okay. Next up is Zach versus Fred. So Zach
Hey,
is probably
we got a
going to.
devil.
Zach's probably going to bring some Bellicor. That's probably what Zach is bringing.
Really excited to actually see that in action, just to
Yeah.
see it play.
He's
And
excited
play
about
well,
that.
hopefully.
Yep, he's
Yeah.
excited about that. And I did get confirmation today that Fred is coming. And Fred
Excellent.
is bringing something. We don't know. I don't know Fred well at all. I know he brought Deathwatch to the last tournament, but he made some comment about maybe bringing Grey Knights.
So Fred, I met Fred for the first time when I was in Chicago visiting Lisa's family, and I was just able to set it up. Like I had a day available. I'm like, oh, cool! I get to play a game with a Patreon, and we can just have a good time. I have seen his collection. It is broad and deep. He could bring most anything he feels like, and he has clearly shown his ability to understand, to address a meta, I guess is how I would say it, with his Death Watch list.
Mm-hmm.
He really understood where things were and what was going to be effective. Like no one called that, right? Like that of all the lists that we would have speculated on, Death Watch was not in that conversation. So that is the sign of someone who has a pretty good insight on what's going on. I don't think he got lucky. And he did beat me in the game I played with him. So, definitely someone to watch.
Okay. I agree completely. Next up is the 3-seed Brad Chester against Ryan Lynn. Ryan Lynn's a local guy that plays AdMech. He did win the Boise Cup, so he's recently had some success with AdMech. That said, I'm gonna have to put my money on Brad Chester on this one. Brad is a I win everything sort of guy. So yeah, but that should be an education for how AdMech can get beat. Would be my guess is what's gonna happen there.
Tying into that, I was on Unbroken, Brad Chester's podcast for Art of War, and the episode for my loss to Custodes, the Triple Telemon, just went up, I think, today or yesterday. So that's something for people to check out.
Excellent. Brad is probably bringing orcs. So that is our second orc versus AdMech game.
We better figure out that orc
really,
versus AdMech technology.
Really excited to see that.
Yeah.
That's gonna be peak, like, cutting edge meta right there. That doesn't get any harder than that.
What I really like is that we have an orc mirror, so we're promised an orc gets to round 2.
Yep.
I like that. Because we don't know. We don't know. Are they going to be able to beat AdMech? I have no idea. Right?
I hope so.
I certainly think that Brad Chester can beat AdMech with them, but we'll see. Next
My
up,
statement is that anytime we have a Xenos Codex be the big bad, it's good for the game.
Okay, that's fair. Next up is maybe if Rich Kilton isn't the nicest guy in 40K, it's certainly JT McDowell.
Man.
He will be playing the Drukhari, because that's what he plays, into Jamie Paris's Space Wolves.
If we live in a good timeline, Rich Kilton will end up playing JT next round. Like, if there is any hope.
That is a very difficult thing. They cannot play until round 4.
Oh, okay. Damn.
I'm into it.
Okay.
Then I call upon the universe to make that happen.
That will involve JT beating Brad Chester.
I believe.
Fine, so be it.
Okay. I'm not saying he can't do it. Next up is Colin, that would be me, versus Jeremiah Bergdale. Jeremiah is our probably most practiced local Drukhari player. I am deciding if I'm bringing the Drukhari mirror. Because Drukhari is what I want to bring, and it's what I need practice with for the team tournament. But let's come back to this in a second. And Jeremiah is another GT winning player from the Pacific Northwest. He beat Mitch's AdMech at the GT. He's no slouch.
Player. he knows exactly what he's doing. He's
Yep.
really, really solid.
And the final game is Ruben from Brohammer and from Florida into Chuck.
Mm-hmm.
And Chuck will be playing Orcs, Log.
Mm-hmm.
And Ruben will be playing Eldari.
Ooh.
Wait, did I get that right? Yes.
Smash some pointy ears. Yep.
He likes to play, well, I don't know exactly what he's going to be playing, but I know that he likes to play Craft Rolled and Drukhari together.
Yep. I looked at his ITC record. He's got that. He's got some just straight up Drukari's. So he's got the experience.
Yeah, so here's the reason why I might not bring Drukhari. Because the way that my pairings work is if I beat Jeremiah, I then will play the winner of Ruben and Chuck. And so that I could potentially play Drukhari into Drukhari round 1 and round 2 if Ruben beats Chuck. Now, I'm not saying Ruben's going to beat Chuck, but we do have to acknowledge that Ruben is the 11 seed.
Yeah,
and Chuck is the 22 seed.
That's likely. But if I do win that game, that means you play Drukhari into Drukhari, and then round 2 you play me with your Drukhari. And since I just beat somebody who's probably a better player than me with my Orcs, I'm in a good position to beat you as well.
Fair enough. I'm aware of the Chuck tournament curse, so I don't take that too seriously. But
every curse breaks eventually.
All right. Well, I've literally, guys, I gotta be honest, I have no idea what I'm taking. I've decided that I'm going to finish planning Charity Hammer. I'm going to get everything locked into place and everything rolling. I'm doing like hotel blocks and stuff right now. I'm going to get everything locked in, and then I'm going to say, okay, what am I taking and what do I want to hobby between now and then? It's not going to be Tyranids, I can tell you that. Beyond that, I don't know. I don't want to play Tyranids to Drukhari. That sounds like I won't have fun. Okay. So that's our 32, guys. That's our 16 matchups. So how this is going to work is we're going to put 6 of these 16 on stream for round 1. We don't have a choice. There's too many, we don't have the ability to put all of this round, the 16 games on stream, even over the 3 days that we're streaming. We have a lot of other content we want to do, and it just took up too much time and was too difficult. So 10 of these games won't be on stream. Probably like the 1 into 32 and 2 into 31, 3 into 30. Those games are probably games that won't be on stream. But we're going to have John Quinnell here. We're going to have Falcon here. They're going to have cameras. They're going to be wandering. They're going to be filming. And so we will be able to do updates from those games from the streaming games. So you'll get to know what's happening. You just won't get to see those games. So we'll have 6 of these on stream. Then, starting in the next round, once we are down to 16 people, every game will be on stream. All of them. The 16 people that lose will get dropped into a single elimination losers tournament, and that will all be on stream as well. So at the end of the tournament, we'll have a winner, the undefeated versus undefeated, and 1 loss, and then undefeated versus 1 loss and undefeated. We'll be playing, those will be the 2 big final games of the tournament. And I also just added a bronze matchup, because the way single elimination brackets work is you end up with 4 people that are the top 4, and then only 2 of them go on to play. And so who gets 3rd and who gets 4th? Well, in a 32-person GT, 3rd and 4th is a meaningful difference in ITC points. So we'll have those 2 play as well, basically, to decide who is 3rd and who is 4th. So, yeah, that's what's going on. Isn't that cool? I think it's great.
I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm super stoked.
I am incredibly excited.
You will be
soon.
It is very soon.
It's so present.
Okay.
What?
That's the noise I make when I think of how soon Charity Hammer is.
Yeah.
It was a little
Fair
Muppet.
enough. I thought you were trying to court peacocks. I'm sorry.
Why can't it be both?
Okay.
I mean, it can be. He's gonna.
Do
have
not
peacock
judge
prophecy.
me, Mitch.
I'm not gonna yuck your yum. You float your feathers however you want.
Okay. If I'm going to go after a bird, it's going to be a pretty one. I'm just saying. I want majesty. We're going to stop talking about this now. Okay.
Yeah. I didn't dig that hole.
No. And Colin's first rule of holes. I found myself in one. I must stop digging. Okay. So back to Charity Hammer. Lots more to be announced. On Saturday, though. On Saturday at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern, I'll be streaming live with Nick Nanavati and John Lennon. And what we'll be doing is we'll be seeding seeding's the wrong word. They will be selecting draft style their 5v5 team tournament teams for Charity Hammer's opening night, when we are going to have a who is the better team captain, John or Nick competition. So they're going to draft 5 players each. It's going to be the snake style, where one of them will pick 1, then the other will pick 2, then 2, then like that. They'll pick anybody they want from the tournament. They'll then work with those people to come up with lists. Then on the day of Charity Hammer, we will have those lists will be given to each team, and you'll get to see the team see the opponent's list for the first time, talk through the strategy of pairing and how they're going to try to win the round. All that will be on camera, so you'll get to see how team tournament strategy works. And then we will play them. We'll have those games played, and we'll get to see whose team becomes victorious. So that'll be neat as well. So we're doing that on Saturday at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern, right here on the channel. All right.
So I just, Colin, I wanted to revisit something we talked about earlier in the podcast, where you were talking about getting to hang out and watch games as a TO.
Yes.
Right. And it's very much the same experience you get as a 40K commentator, right? It's about the same kind of, like, you're not necessarily being asked rules calls, but like for watching and observing the game, it's that same neutral perspective. And I thought it was interesting. You had a lot more commentary on the talent of the people you were watching than when you're normally playing. I mean, obviously you can comment on the talent of the people you're playing, but it's a limited selection. When you're a TO, you get to see everyone play,
Yep.
right? And that's something I wanted to kind of hit on, just because, one, for people who want to maybe understand the game better and push themselves, running the local RTT, or just participating in the other side of things, offers you an entirely different perspective on the game. You get to see so much more variety. You're not getting the reps, and you're not getting like that focused practice, but you do get a much broader feel for the players in your area and the meta in your area, and it can really be a cool way to give back and also inform your own competitive self.
Yeah.
All of this was a preamble to say, see, I told you guys John Lennon would be the number 1 player in 2 years. Nailed it.
I will say that it was weird not playing, but I didn't want any chance, no matter how small, that I would win a tournament at my own home. Like, I just didn't want that.
Yeah, it's a weird,
like
uncomfortable
the
thing.
practice RTTs we've done, fine, I can win those. Charity Hammer, if I win that, by the way, for anyone who's wondering, my path to winning Charity Hammer is probably something like Jeremiah, Chuck or Ruben, and then Brad Chester, Nick Nanavati, and then John Lennon. It's something like that. It's not going to happen. But if I did win that...
The good news is you'll be exhausted in between each of those matches, because you'll be doing everything for Charity Hammer.
Yes, exactly.
So it's like not even your best day to face
No,
them.
it's terrible. No, I do not play my best 40K at Charity Hammer. That is a true story. But my decision was to not play because I didn't want to win. But then I needed to run the tournament, and that was clear. It did not run itself, and some of the things I did, like I personally made sure that every table was terrain that I was happy with. There was stuff like that I spent my time doing instead of playing. But what was also fun is, Mitch, Chuck, and I are kind of, we've been in this local meta for a long time. We're not new players at all. We're kind of the veteran players now. A lot of the people that were at the tournament.
I have a follow-up to this. Keep going. Sorry, but
what's that?
Yeah, I have a follow-up to what you just said, but keep going.
Well, I don't feel like a veteran, but at the same time, I've been playing competitive 40K longer than most of the people that were at that tournament now at this point, because lots of people came in later in 8th and also for 9th.
To be fair, we've been playing 40K longer than a lot of those people have existed.
Well, yeah, but I took like 18 years off, so it's still weird
That's
for
right.
me.
You have a much larger break than I do.
Yeah. So, I did feel like I was giving back, right? I feel like I was like, hey, the local meta has been amazing to me. I've won a lot of tournaments. I've had a lot of fun. My opponents have almost all been awesome. Now I'm not going to play. You guys come play. You guys come have fun. I'll make sure everybody's having fun. And it did feel like I was giving back. And that was a wonderful feeling. And people were very gracious about it. They were very excited that we did this tournament and that it ran as well as it did. And they appreciated the effort that Tyler and Peter and Pickles and Michael, who did a bunch of work with a broke ass foot leading up to the event. He's sitting at a desk making my network better so that we can stream well. Like, all these people put a lot of effort in, and the players saw it. They totally saw it, and they appreciated it. So you're right, Mitch. It did feel like that. What were you going to say?
We'll get to what I was going to say, but kind of springboarding off what you're saying there, though, like it was a really chill tournament. It was very friendly. Everyone's just kind of talking with each other. Like it was a really comfortable event, and I appreciated all the effort you put into that. I don't appreciate Amazon's shipping policies, but having to have played a game in the heat dome.
It turns out that the loft above my pool house is very hot. That was a big takeaway from this weekend.
Yeah, some guys played shirtless. I just got heat stroke, but it's each their own. But going back to what you were saying about, I love the Portland scene. They've got a ton of young players who are really
they're all like 21 years old. It's crazy.
Yeah, who are really enthusiastic and super into the game, and I love it. They are bringing heat, and it is great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And they are all really nice guys, great sports. Like I'm all about everything that's going on down in Portland. However, I have never felt older than when I have multiple Portland players be like, "Oh man, you're like the white whale, man. You're like an old legend." Like, oh, cool, dude.
And aren't you like 10 years younger than I am too?
I'm 32, dude.
Yeah, I'm 41. I was close.
Yeah. No, I know. That's what I'm saying. I'm like, yeah, like it's, but like I was called an old legend, a white whale, one of the like old school or something to that. Like, it's all fine. It's very complimentary, and I get that. But I just realized I'm like, oh, I'm in my 30s now. It's my turn to start feeling old. I get that.
Yeah. All those guys are very impressive, and I challenge anyone to talk to Tanner for 5 minutes about 40K and not think that he really understands 40K. Like Tanner came up to me and he's like, I would like to talk to you. And I'm like, okay. And he's just like, so I've got this idea and this idea and this idea and this idea and this idea. And I'm like, okay. Like, those guys are really into it, and I love it. I'm with you. I think that we made, Peter and I went to Stumptown Stomp right before, like, kind of end of 19, which was a GT in Portland. And Lucas was there, and Tyler was there. I don't know if Tanner was there, and I don't know if Nick, the other guy who came up from Portland, a couple other guys came up, but Jeremiah, I don't know who I think Jeremiah was there. But it was a really easy GT. This is just 2 years ago. Like, it was one of my easiest GT wins that I've ever had. I didn't play people that had the kind of the depth of knowledge of the game that was going to be necessary at that point when I was playing Eldar and I had hundreds of reps with it. But to go from that to this is amazing. Like, they've grown more than our meta has over these last 2 years, and now they have a bunch of players who I think I would pick to beat the vast majority of our local talent on a particular day. So really impressive.
But also all amazing sportsmen, all really nice. It's really great.
It is. Okay.
It's super cool to see a neighboring city that we go to GTs to just have a blooming meta. That's awesome.
I agree completely. And by the way, I'm announcing it right now. Next year's equivalent Bev Pod tournament will not be a GT. Will not be at my home. It'll be a major. It's going to be a major, and it's going to be at a hotel near SeaTac Airport, I believe. Don't know yet. And you guys are going to know about it 6 months in advance. And if you want to fly out here, you can come to the Biff Pod party. Because our patron group is going to jump all over that, and we're going to have a big party here in the Pacific Northwest that I'm going to run, and it's going to be super chill, and everybody's going to have a great time, and we'll try to announce it 6 months in advance so you can try to come. But this was so much fun that I can't let it be just this GT. The wait list was long. I can't let it be like that. It's got to be a major. Going to be a major. So there you go. That's my big announcement.
I actually now have a place where we could run a major, like size-wise.
All right. That's
it's
true,
in the
you
middle
do.
of nowhere, but
You do.
hotels will be cheap.
I guess we could just build Tent City on my property and do a major that way.
Yeah, I have 9 acres. That's definitely possible.
Yeah. Okay. Anywho, so better human, better 40K.
Mm-hmm.
This podcast started off with the idea that we wanted to not just help. We didn't wanted to not just talk about 40K, but we wanted to talk about being human beings as well. And we want to help you in any way we can, and we want to help you certainly succeed more in 40K. But we also want to help you be happy. There's a lot of reason to be sad. There's a lot of reason to be depressed in this world, and a lot of people are struggling with mental health right now, in particular. And so we want to talk about how you can be a more successful, happier human and how that will translate to 40K. And we've done that 2 segments already. I will mention that we are going to take all of these segments and I'm going to edit them into one thing that we release at the end that's just this. But for now, we're just going to keep weaving it into the show. So we talked about making things happen versus things happening to you. We talked about, wow, what is the second one we talked about? The Johari window and self-awareness.
Johari.
Yeah. And now we're going to talk about
understanding yourself.
Yep, exactly. Learning about yourself, understanding yourself. And now we're going to talk about one of Chuck's favorite topics, and so I'm going to let him go first. And that topic is vulnerability. Why is vulnerability important, Chuck?
It kind of goes back to the first topic of not blaming your dice, of not making excuses. If you allow yourself to be vulnerable, you share yourself, you're honest about yourself, with yourself and with others, you get true feedback. True feedback and true information is the best foundation to build the next thing you want from. This comes from a bunch of different places, right? Like, if you just want to be happier in your relationships, finding out how you impact people, you can figure out like, oh, I don't want to have that impact anymore. I could improve there, or I can change. I can just try something different, right? To like, I think work, it's also really important. Mm-hmm. There's a bunch of spaces like that where if you don't let people see who you are, one, you can never form a very good relationship with that person because they're always going to be looking at somebody who isn't you. So there's like layers of masks and that kind of thing in the way. But also it means that you get used to not seeing you. You get used to seeing this thing that you made up, and then you're uncomfortable with yourself. Mm-hmm. I think those are all really important. Personally, this is a super interesting journey for me. I grew up starting in elementary school through touching into high school just a little bit around a lot of bullies. And what that is like a chain, right? You end up with like, there's people at the top, but they're being the people underneath them and so on down. And it kind of cycles. And I was in the middle and all that shit. And that really creates a mental standpoint where you don't ever want anyone to see any kind of weakness from you, because they're going to take that and they're going to attack you with it. But also creates this scenario where you can't actually get honest feedback. You can't connect with people. Mm-hmm. Therapy and effort later, I've kind of full 180'd that thing. And I'm pretty happy to, and often in the overshare category, because I like to, this is who I am, this is what I'm going through, what do you think of it? Like, mm-hmm. I want input, I want to hear what people have to say. And that starts with being open about yourself. And at first, like, that's super hard to do. Like, it's a sort of super scary thing, right? Like, particularly if you're in that environment, like I'm talking about, where you're like, I'm going to put something forward, and if somebody makes fun of it, that's going to hurt, right? Mm-hmm. Or worse, right? Like, actually use it against you in something more than just hurting your feelings, right? Could be, relationships, all kinds of bad situations there. But once you get past that and you get to a group of people you can share who you are with, you can find people who share interests, share values with you, that can actually see who you are and can say, hey, I see you doing this thing. You should probably, pick a different path. It doesn't seem to be serving you, or it's hurting you, or that sort of thing. Mm-hmm.
I think that's wonderful. And I'd like to share my connection to this topic, similar to how Chuck did. So I don't know how far back to go. I am someone who had a great deal of self-esteem damage done as a child. I just want to leave it at that for now, and build from there. I have always been very quick with the way I communicate and the way that my mind works. I'm not the guy that you want if you're trying to memorize a science book. I'm not the guy that you want if you're trying to do incredibly long, complicated problem solving. I'm very quick. It's the way I process things, and I thought that I had to look perfect. I thought that that was the way I was supposed to be, and I used my ability to be influential with words and the speed at which I could respond to conversation to make sure that I always was seen in the best light. I told stories that weren't completely true. I bent things. I changed things on the fly. I would start talking and I would see someone start reacting to the thing that I'm saying, and I would pull back and change what I was saying and go again.
Rearrange the story so it
Yes.
fit into something you thought they would like.
Yeah, in order to make them like it. And I didn't have a lot of really great friendships. I lost track of Chuck and his kind of his crew of friends, and I hung out with a few people that kind of knew me well enough to know who I really was, but I didn't know who I really was. And I started going to therapy, and I was really just an arrogant ass. Let's be clear. Like, literally, that's who I was. And I started going to therapy, and the therapist, after like a long time, I don't remember how long it was, but like years, I had a time where I was crying. I was having such a hard time explaining something to her, and she said, "This is the first time I've seen Colin in all the years you've been coming here." And I had no idea what she meant. And she explained that I had put an effective mask up that she saw through. She's a therapist. It wasn't hard for her to see at all. But she couldn't figure out a way to get me to realize that I didn't need that mask. She couldn't figure it out. I was so worried that someone would not like me because I was not perfect that I just couldn't even function. So, I just couldn't even accept it, is I guess a better way of putting it. So, I started trying to be more open about not being good at things, which was really hard for me from the way that I was raised and the pressure on being perfect that my brother and I were put under. And I really struggled with that for a long time. And then I got a lesson that I'll never forget, which was people connect with vulnerability. They don't connect with perfection. And I started thinking about the things that I was struggling with in my personality and how I saw them in other people. And the people that annoy me most in this world are the people that do the exact thing I was doing. And there's a number of them in my life. They might be a friend of mine. They could be married to a friend of mine. They could be someone I have to play 40K against occasionally. There's somebody I used to work with that's really bad about this, where they're just constantly puffing themselves up. Every story is manipulated and everything is blown out of proportion, and everything's to make them look amazing, and it drives me crazy. I hate it. I don't want to be around it. And I thought that was just because that's my dark thing that they have and I don't want to see it. It's not that at all. People don't want to connect with that. They want to connect with you as a human being. They want to be connected to human beings, not to these like nobody wants.
It turns into a contest between two people of like who can tell the better story about the thing they didn't actually do. Right. Like
right.
What's the point?
I was thinking about this today. There's all those posts online about Henry Cavill and the fact that he loves 40K, right? Mm-hmm. Let's presume that you became friends with Henry Cavill, because isn't that amazing? He's a celebrity. Okay, so you're friends with Henry Cavill. Let's pretend, I don't know, I'm sure he's actually a wonderful person, but let's pretend that he beats you every time at 40K. He reminds you regularly of how good looking he is and how much money he has. And he never shares anything personal, anything hard, challenging, struggling with him at all. You are now a sidekick, not his friend. Yep. Right? That's not what people are looking for. So when you realize that people want to connect with who you actually are, and by the way, if you're a single guy, there's nothing I'm going to say over the next several episodes that's more important than this. The people out there, whether they be whoever you're wanting, woman or man or whatever, they want to know the stuff. They want to know what you're bad at. They want to know what's hard for you. They want to know that. That's how they're going to connect with you. So that's where this comes from me. And I want to talk about parenting at the end, Chuck. So we'll leave that for now. Because this is a big thing with parenting. But it's really that people will literally love you for being open with them about the things that are hard for you. And I will now hand it off to Mitch to share whatever this means to him.
So I think I come at this very differently than from you guys. I grew up in a family that had plenty of flaws and stuff, but we were very open about our feelings and you know, like it was very like that was never an issue. And I, at 17, was in a very serious car accident and lost my memory for like the past like 3 years before that, and had an IQ change and a personality change and a lot of different things that happened with that. And I had to relearn what it was to be a person in a very conscious way. And through that, I learned to be a better person and to figure out. I had, like on a lot of different levels. Like I had been through a near-death experience. I had been through a lot of different things. I had recovered from a brain injury. Like I felt very comfortable with who I was. And then I had a work injury, 2.5 years ago, and the person who I had become very comfortable and like well developed in changed and was damaged and was given a lot of new problems and was forced into vulnerability. Not by choice. Like I just literally couldn't take care of myself in the ways that I would have liked to.
Right.
So that my perspective for vulnerability comes from I had already kind of come to terms with who I was, and then who I was changed on me. And that's a vulnerable position to be in just in general. And with having multiple traumatic brain injuries at this point, like it's come with a lot of consequences and a lot of different things to deal with. And it's very humbling in understanding both how hard the struggle can be for other people, and just from like you can only ever know the struggle you've lived through. Like I mean, you can imagine other things and you can attribute some emotional weight to that, but you can only really know what you've ever experienced as a human being. And when kind of everything is taken away from you and you have to completely reconfigure yourself, that is a very vulnerable moment. That is a very vulnerable process. There's nothing about healing that isn't vulnerable. And I think that that's something that's very important for people to understand. If you have a wound, if you have emotionally, mentally, whatever, like healing and vulnerability are synonymous. You can't do one without the other. You can't have all of the systems up and functioning and protecting you while you're healing. Something has to go offline. You have to be vulnerable. And that is a very hard pill to swallow if you've built your own identity on independence and capability and coolness under pressure, and all of a sudden that's not who you are anymore, not from anything you chose. And that's why I kind of say I feel like I come at vulnerability differently. Is the vulnerability I've had to experience in the last probably 2.5 years has not been a choice. It's just been something I've had to deal with. And I think overcome is maybe not necessarily the right word, because there's growth and positivity to be had in those things, along with the negatives, but it doesn't necessarily change the very negative impacts that forced vulnerability has on you. And I think that it's very important for people, like, if you can be vulnerable under your own power versus something building up and you having to be vulnerable out of your own power, you really want the first choice. Like that is
you always want to pick your own battle, right?
Yeah, that is going to be far healthier for you than suppressing. Like in my case, I wasn't suppressing anything. I was injured, but like for people who are dealing with depression or any sort of like struggle, like ignoring it or trying to like hide from it or avoid it, whatever terminology you want to use, that's going to only magnify the problem. It's not going to help. Like forced vulnerability is only going to magnify just exactly how little power you have in this universe. Trust me, it's not going to feel better.
Right.
The forced vulnerability, you still have to decide how you're going to respond to it.
For sure, but there's less agency in that. And if you ignore something, like you can't avoid consequence. You can only delay it for a while, right? Like that. like if you ignore that need for vulnerability, something that you need to get out or need to discuss or process or whatever it is, do it. Do it on your terms. That's fine, but that is the value of facing your problems is you get to say, "Hey, I'm going to do it, but it's on my terms because it's in your head. You get to choose the battlefield, whether it's a psychologist's office, whether it's talking to your doctor, whether it's talking to your spouse. You get to choose that. You get to have control. If you allow it to become a significant enough problem that you have to confront it, you're not going to be prepared, and you'll only be more worn down from having resisted it all this time.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Chuck, any
Yeah,
thoughts from any of this?
I think particularly the resisting. There's so much effort put into keeping up, not being you,
Yep.
to not being vulnerable, that you're swimming through life with weights on.
Yep.
And when you get it off and you're just you and you don't have to worry about that anymore, it makes a massive difference. And just how much energy you have to deal with things on an emotional level, right? Like what you can handle.
I had I might have told this story on the show before, but I think it's very relevant. I was bowling with some friends years ago on a vacation. I hadn't been bowling in probably a decade, and I'm not good at bowling. It's important for the story. And I'm bowling, and I'm doing terrible. I'm in last place of 5 friends, and no one's a practiced bowler. I'm just doing the worst. And one of my friends says, "Colin, is this hard for you? Because I know how competitive you are." And I am. I'm very competitive. And if it were 40K and I was in last place, I would want to know why. But it wasn't. It was bowling. And I literally said, "Well, I didn't wake up this morning thinking that I'm God's gift to bowling." Like there's some that's self-awareness and vulnerability, right? It's perfectly acceptable to announce that you're bad at something. That's okay. It's fine. And you know what? People are happy to hear it. And I think that it's easy to see why vulnerability makes you likable if you look at the most silly and two-dimensional version of it, which is self-deprecating humor.
Mm-hmm.
In sales, every salesperson has a list of self-deprecating jokes that they use to make other people feel comfortable. It just is a thing. Now, nonstop self-deprecating humor is really hard for other people, just to give you guys an important caveat on this.
Yes.
But I am fat. I just am. I don't want to be. I'm going to work on it, but I am. And I make fun of it. It's fine. I'm okay with it. In 40K, I'm old, and I make fun of that. We make fun of it on the show, so does Chuck. Same thing, right? These are jokes that I'm hitting at myself. They don't hurt me. They're fine. If you want to call me fat, you can call me fat. That's okay. It's an accurate description of who I am at this point in time. Like, it is very easy to just poke fun at yourself. So
there's punching up and punching down, and then there's punching in the air, right? And that's what self-deprecating jokes are. Is that no one is hurt by this,
right? Exactly. And I find that if I'm funny and open about the things that I'm not good at, you know what I find? That people help me with those things. Mm-hmm. That's what I find. Like, especially when it comes to planning Charity Hammer. I said, I do not have the patience to make sure the technology is going to work. And 3 of our friends said, "We've got it, Colin. We'll take care of it." Right? The alternative of that would have been me asking them to help while telling them that I'm amazing at it. It's not the same thing. So,
or I've seen the really skeezy version of that where you allow them to help. Like, "Oh, if you would like, I have some things you could do."
Right.
When you like desperately need their help instead of being thankful to them for.
Right.
I see that in the work environment.
We should probably do an asking people for things section of the show, Chuck.
Asking is super good.
I didn't know I was good at it, and Chuck made a really big deal about it, and it was one of those big self-awareness moments.
Are we talking about ask versus guess?
No, asking, just literally saying, "Hey, I can't do this. Can you help me?" It's one of the things that Colin's really good at that I struggle with. So I it was easy for me to see. He had no idea he was good at it.
No. But we can talk about that later. I do want to talk for a minute on parenting and vulnerability, and then we need to talk about how it relates to 40K, because that's the whole point of what we're doing.
Oh, sure.
We're distracted because we're all more interested in talking about being a human being. So
it is the segment.
Yeah. So I read in a book when I first became a stepdad about the importance of vulnerability with the kids. And my dad did not believe in this. I got to tell you, we played chess every day until I beat him, and then we never played again. Like, it was a very clear that I was not supposed to think that he was anything other than perfect. Joke's on him.
Mhm.
So I had this thing happen where I was trying to connect with the kids and teach them things, and they wouldn't listen. And then I went and tried to teach them things, and I openly shared things that I am crappy at, or things that I struggle with, or things that were hard for me as a kid that aren't hard for me now. And you know what happened? Those boys immediately keyed in and listened. They connected to me immediately as soon as I did that. And you know, as a parent, the other place this comes up for me all the time, I have a temper that's hard for me. I have a internal fuse that needs the world to be fair, and when I'm treated badly or I think things are unfair, it's very hard for me not to blow up. And so I've yelled at the kids. Now, you yell at kids, that's a thing, but I've yelled at kids unfairly, the kids unfairly some. And when I do that, if I go and say, hey, I'm sorry I yelled at you, it's nothing. They don't care. But if I go and say, hey, I'm sorry that I lost my temper, here's why I lost it. This is what happened, and this is how it sounded to me, and this is what that triggered in me, and that made me really mad, and I couldn't control it. I want to control it, but I couldn't. That's vulnerability. They're a human being. Human beings want vulnerability. That's how they connect. So I wanted to hear Chuck, who is much better at vulnerability than I am, I wanted to hear if that's something that he relates to with his son Mason, if he has seen that at all. That was a question
Yeah,
I wanted to ask.
quite a bit. Actually, I think raising him is one of the things that taught me more about vulnerability and the values of it. Um, I similar to your story about having trouble with things not being fair,
Mm-hmm.
things being done in a non-efficient fashion
Mm-hmm.
will will set me off.
You mean like how when you tell kids to move things from one room to another and they pick up one thing at a time? That
Uh-huh.
and,
Or
and
or
your just brain is melting. Yes.
or they come back without something that they were supposed to bring back here.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that stuff.
We're
And it's
trying to leave
definitely
and
a
no one
thing.
has socks. Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah. Oh man. Um, Thankfully, I was kind of midway through that journey already, so I kind of understood this is sort of a pet peeve for me, and I experimented with it. Right? I'd say I'm still putting effort towards controlling my feelings when that kind of thing happens, but it's similarly, I think the sharing, particularly gotten much better at it in the last like 5 years or so. He's 17 now, so he's a man. But saying like, "Hey,
I'm sorry, Chuck. In my brain, he's still 15. I don't think he's allowed to age further.
oh, he seems to disagree."
Yeah.
He's also as
Yeah.
tall as I am
Okay.
and wider in the shoulders, so it's a lot. But saying to him like, "Hey, this thing happened. This is what I did. This is what I wish I had done, but I just made the wrong choice at the time, and I'm sorry. I hope I didn't hurt your feelings." We've had that kind of conversation many, many times, because him and I disagree on a lot of stuff. As he's growing into an adult, he has a lot of different opinions and stuff, and so we have to navigate from being I am the parent and I will tell you the situation to now like he's an adult and he needs to learn to be an adult, and I have to give him the space to be that adult, which also means I have to talk to him like an adult, right? I can't just direct. I'm not in charge anymore. In fact, he tells me when he's coming over, right? Like he's basically in charge. And making that shift is very interesting because you do have years and years and years of being the parent who tells them what to do, and then you have to like, okay, well now they're a teenager and I have to give them the space to succeed, or to fail on their own, right? And that is an interesting switch that requires a lot of apologizing and a lot, because it's like a changing relationship.
Yeah.
And if you don't show them that humanity, that vulnerability, they're not going to show it back to you.
Yeah. Our oldest just turned 15, and I'm starting to see, and he's also been a tiny adult for a long time. He's very responsible.
Yeah, he's got a lot of younger siblings in the room.
Yeah, but I've been noticing how different it is talking to him than it was when he was 13 or 12.
Yeah.
So I hear that loudly. Okay. One of vulnerability when it comes to 40K. For me, it's about two things. It's about helping you with self-awareness, because remember, you want to learn about you and you want to share who you are, and those things are easier if you are open, or if you're open with people and you're willing to be vulnerable. But in addition to that, you can be a much nicer opponent by being open with who you are. And here's what I mean by that. I've Everyone on this podcast has had a lot of experience tabling people. People don't like to be tabled. It's not a thing that they enjoy. But you don't actually want them to have a bad time. I find that if I'm open about mistakes that I make, I'm open about the way that I see the game, I'm open about surprises I get from their list, I find that if I'm open about really anything that I do wrong, that not only does my opponent typically find it interesting, but it takes the edge off of that. Because we're connecting, we're building a friendship, we're not just playing 40k. So, oh man, I totally meant this guy's not in range of the aura. Like, he's just not. And I just messed that up. And your opponent will often say, that's okay, push him back in. And I'll sometimes I'll say, no, it's all right. I messed that up. Whatever. I mess things up sometimes. This isn't even the biggest mistake I'll make today. Like, you can make it into a kind of a funny, open thing. That's where vulnerability comes into 40k for me, is that ability to connect better. And also to, after the game, be like, I know that I lost. I don't know what I did wrong. Or, I know I won, but I'm not entirely sure why. Or I'm not entirely sure how I could have done this differently. Like, that's all that stuff from the Jahari window section that we did previously all ties in with vulnerability.
Mm-hmm.
What do you guys think of that? Or other ways that vulnerability helps with 40k?
No, I agree a ton. I seek feedback pretty regularly, both positive and negative, and it feeds me to continue to want to improve. And there are long stints of losing, and it takes a lot of vulnerability muscles to seek feedback when you've lost many games in a row, and maybe be told the same thing, right? You have to be open to that. So I think that's where it comes in, is really getting data and then being able to share as much information as you can to get the feedback from people.
Right. Mitch, anything you want to add here?
Yeah, so I think one of the things that I've learned at playing competitively for a long time is to allow people the space to be themselves.
Yeah.
When you do that, they become more vulnerable. Like, coming at it from a slightly different angle, like, I think you guys have really covered being vulnerable very well. If you can, like, allowing people to feel comfortable, and like, yes, we're at a tournament, but if you see that your opponent is already maybe a little keyed up, maybe it's a bad matchup for them, whatever it is, if you can start to get them to be put at ease, that's going to help the entire process of, like, if someone's defenses are up, they have vulnerability can be disarming, and that may be the way you get there. But being sensitive to the other person's vulnerability when you're playing, like, in a match, I have found to be very helpful for getting people to be a little bit more at ease. Like, oh, you're worried about X. Don't worry. We can always communicate, like, that what's going on there. Like, some people can be very particular about certain rules or pre-measuring charges. Whatever it is, if you're alert to it and aware and intentional, you can pick up on that and be like, hey, do you want to do this differently? Like, how would you prefer it? Like, and you can start, and if it, like, the second you extend someone else that's going to put them in a much more comfortable level of, oh, this person cares about my experience. They're a connection can be formed. Like, if you're playing a competitive game, like, that's 2.5 to 3 hours you're spending with that person. Like, hopefully you come out with it with a friend, or at least someone you like reasonably. Like, you have the same interest,
at least somebody that you're not actively looking forward to never seeing again, right?
Yeah, but anything above neutral is great. That's a win. Like, the community. So Chuck has been in this community far longer than me, but if there's one thing I have learned, and I'm sure Chuck has seen this even more so, is like, the connections you make in the community far outlast any tournament win.
Yep.
Any tournament win. There is I don't care if you're winning LVO. I don't care if you're winning the ITC. The relationships go longer and reach deeper because those are the guys you're going and getting beers and dinner with after the tournament. They're going to be there again in a decade because they got out of it for a little bit while they had kids, and now the kids are old enough they can come back. Like, people submerge and resurface in this community all the time, but like the ties run long and they run deep, and the most important thing you can have is a good reputation as someone who is interested in what other people's experiences.
Yep, I agree completely. And that's a wonderful segue into what our next time we're going to talk about on Better Human, Better 40K. Because I didn't include this, but I was talking in the Discord the other day on our patron Discord, which you can find at patreon.com/biffpod. But I was talking in there about my kids, when I met them, had moved around a lot. Stephanie was a single mom. It was just a thing that had to happen. And they had not had much of a chance to make friends. And they perceived that I had a large amount of friends. And they wanted to they literally asked me, how do you make friends? And over the time that they've been aging, I've now known them 6 years, I've started putting a lot of thought into, what do I do to build rapport? I've been in sales for 20 years. I make friends easily for the most part. Not everybody likes me, but nobody likes everybody. There's nobody who's universally liked. So I've been trying to put a lot of thought into that. And the Discord asked me to do Colin's Guide to Making Friends as a Better Human, Better 40K.
I'm just going to point out that Angela Lansbury is universally liked.
I really thought that show was terrible. I'm sorry. I don't have any problem with her, but I did not like my mom used to. There was only a couple nights a week where my mom took over the TV and made us watch it, and it was like Murphy Brown and Murder, She Wrote and MASH were like the three shows.
I'm just sticking up for the Falcon here.
So I feel a little weird about that because I don't think I'm some expert, some master level person at making friends, but I do have a lot to say about that. So
I think your career says otherwise, and you should just accept that.
Fine. I'm just gonna. My Johari window has grown slightly larger. I will do Colin's Guide to Making Friends as our next Better Human, Better 40K, and that'll be great fun. Somebody would like to know what you're painting, Chuck, before we wrap up here.
Oh.
Your green screen says no. We cannot see.
Oh, they're Rocket Truck Squig Buggies. I painted the 4 layers of skin and 3 layers of squig orange. So
excellent.
Getting there.
All right. Well, lots of works are going to be on stream soon enough, isn't that right?
That's why I'm painting them.
Yep. So, guys, thank you everybody for joining us on this Thursday evening. The show will go up on Friday, and then on Saturday at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern, we'll be doing the drafting of the 5v5 tournament. I absolutely love doing this show. I know that Chuck and Mitch feel the same way. So thank you so much, and thank you again to everyone who came out to the first ever Biff Pod basically run GT. It was a very memorable weekend that I will never forget. So
before we go, how far off from 100 episodes are we, Colin?
7? No, more than
7?
that. 17? Hold on, let me look. I don't actually remember.
17. It's supposed to be towards the end of the year, yeah.
Yeah, it's got to be a bunch because, well, the idea is to try. So the idea I had is maybe we go to Vegas a day early and maybe we record the 100th episode live in Vegas with patrons. That was my.
That sounds amazing. Live audience.
That was an idea that I had.
Q&A, all of it. Let's do all of it.
Yeah, I don't know if they have questions for us. So this is 91.
Okay. 9 episodes, guys. 9.
Oh man, that's pretty soon.
I feel like that's the appropriate time to start the countdown.
Okay.
We're in single digits.
Just 9 episodes left. Tell the Biff Pod 100 episode extravaganza. Is that better? Mike?
Exactly.
Did you like that? Okay.
It's perfect.
Sundays. No.
Are we gonna do it on Sunday? I don't know.
No, I think we're gonna do it on Wednesday or Thursday or whatever
Wednesday.
it is, the day before LVO.
Yep. Wednesday.
I think we should do it if LVO starts Friday, which I think is right. I think we should do it Thursday night. That's what I'm saying. Like I think we should find a place and we should go there, and then everybody should come, and we should record a 3-hour episode. We'll grab people randomly from the audience and interview them. I think it'll be great. So
yeah,
that's what's up.
Love it.
Charityhammer.com. It's filled out. It's got all the stuff. The agenda's mostly done. You can find everything that we just talked about there. CharityHammer.com, Patreon group, Patreon. Blah, 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 bunch of URLs. Go to all of them. Okay.
BiffPod, Patreon. Google that. You'll get there.
Patreon.com/BIFPOD. All right, so that's what we've got for here. The next episode will be the last one before Charity Hammer, and will be entirely about Charity Hammer. We'll also get the Falcon on here. We're going to try to get Adam Camilleri on here. We're going to try to get Ennis on here. We're going to get some people on, and we're going to have them predict the bracket. Then you all will be able to predict the bracket, and if you get it right, you will get a custom painted, gorgeous night ship to you, Imperial night ship to you. And I don't know if it was painted.
Majera, right?
It's being, what's that?
It's a Majera, right?
I think it's a Megara. Isn't it the one that Falcons donated?
Yeah, it's a Megara.
And I don't know if Falcon
even a good
painted
night.
it, but I asked him to verify that, and he did not answer, so I'm just going to say painted by the Falcon.
Cool.
No. He bought it eBay, painted professionally, like really high quality for the. Yeah, no, it's very pretty.
But painted
did
by the
not. Falcon
was a lot more fun. Anyways, that's what you'll win if you do if you do all the things.
A knight not painted by the Falcon.
I will also
donate.
say that at Hammer Out Cancer and at the previous Charity Hammer, I was in the top 3 for predicting at both. And so I'm also thinking that we may have a beat Colin contest. I haven't figured out exactly how that'll work because I might do terrible. So I don't know how you win. But we might have a beat
You just
Colin.
feel good about yourself.
Yeah, we might have a beat Colin contest because it turns out when you're the one that invites everybody and does the seating, you have a lot of knowledge about who's going to be who. So, thank you, everybody. We love all of you. Thanks so much for being with us on this journey, and we'll see you all soon. Bye now.
Bye.
Bye.